Hi folks, Steve Sweeney with Headwaters for Heroes here. We're back with another session of our podcast. We're here at the 10th annual Headwaters for Heroes Combat Wounded and Gold Star Families Benefit in Harper, Texas. We're currently right now at Station on 290. Today I'm joined by some really good friends of mine, and we're going to have an interesting talk about politics and religion and how it relates to Headwaters for Heroes and our veteran community. I got Mike Weaver from Wild Ride Ministries here on my right. How you doing, Mike?
Good. How are you, brother?
We got Randal Reeder, our old friend.
Yeah.
And
nothing controversial today.
No, nothing going to be controversial. And then we have Matt Long from the Hill Country Patriot Radio 104.3 FM. And I'm going to start with you, Mike. Wild Ride Ministries. Does that have anything to do with your rodeo days?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was trying to rodeo. Wasn't the best, but I realized that what I was supposed to be doing was for God behind the chutes, and started doing church behind the chutes at rodeos, bull ridings, barrel races, team ropings, Western world. And long story short, I moved to Harper and met a few people, and we're trying to think of the name for a church, and they voted to keep the name Wild Ride Ministries. So that's who we are.
That is awesome.
And now and I didn't realize it would encompass motorcycles or whatever. But anyway, the whole thing is just living for Jesus is a wild ride.
Right. Absolutely. And you've been involved with Headwaters for Heroes pretty much since the beginning when we formed. You were
quite a while.
You were our quote chaplain, I guess you would say. You were coming out to most of our events and
for a little while maybe
and being there. You know, it's
not as much as I should. I will say this: this man right here, I got to like Steve first, and then when I found out really what Headwaters for Heroes was all about, there's not an organization that I know of in the country that does as much, and I've seen you grow. What I've seen is when we started being just whatever part we are, you have grown so much, and that's a big kudos to what you're doing and your heart.
Well, it's a testament, I think, to what we do and guided by our faith. Randal, we haven't talked about your ministry.
That's a crazy one. That is a wild ride.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'll tell y'all. God told me in this weird way, as God seems to speak to me at least, that he said, I heard myself say that He's not going to bless anything in my life till I put His ministry first. And my Aunt Sandy heard that. She says, well, what's His ministry for you? I'm like, well, ain't that the bitch? You'd think if He wasn't going to bless me till I do it, He'd tell me what it is. And so I was really upset. I was not happy with God at all about it, because I was like, I heard myself say, I don't think God's going to bless anything I touch and I was like, whoa, why did I say that? Why would I say that? That's the stupidest thing to say, And anyway, an hour later, whatever, in the shower, sure enough, I was listening to Zach Williams' Pandora on the radio, and God tells me, I'm just sitting there going, you cannot be telling me to go into bars at 2 o'clock on Sunday and do a service. This is nuts. I always knew I'd go crazy. I knew it was going to happen. I'd probably be a crazy homeless person one day. Didn't expect it to happen today. And about that time, so it goes from, Zach Williams and We the Kingdom and all this cool Christian music on my Pandora, and then Cody Jinks starts playing. I was like, is that Cody? It kind of breaks me out. I was like, is that Cody Jinks playing? What the hell is he doing on my Christian Pandora? So I pull the curtain over, and I reach over to the lavatory. I step 1 foot out of the shower, dripping all over the floor, to grab the phone to thumbs down it. Because I'm like, Cody Jinks does not belong on my Christian Pandora, messing with my algorithm, And I go to thumbs down it, and all of a sudden he says, I remember Matthew 5, I'm just thankful to be alive, and a lot of those people were just like me. And I was like,
wow, there you go.
Cody Jinks just quoting the Sermon on the Mount. Okay, God, I'll go to the bars and preach and 2 o'clock on Sundays. Just please stop messing with my algorithm on my Pandora. And that's kind of how it started. And we started going into the bars, and we've grown, we expanded, we've the Bay Area is kind of where we started, or we call it, I guess, Bay Area, because we started in Kemah, Texas, and LaPorte, and kind of all that. Now we're going all the way to Conroe, Galveston, Hitchcock, all this kind of, and so it's grown to the point where I had to pretty much like pass the torch to someone who's now the pastor of that area, and I had to go nomad to start other areas because it was too taxing for all these people from going to here way out 290. We're going sometimes 40, 50 miles, and there'd be 30, 40 people showing up, that we're bringing with us to this bar out there where there's already 4, 5, 6 people. It was amazing. I couldn't believe it. And
wow.
And so we've actually had to multiply and kind of not divide, but I guess kind of divide off and break off and multiply. And it's just incredible. And it's funny because you said the motorcycle. I mean, obviously, it's not too far of a stretch of your imagination to see that I'm a biker.
You might think it's a stretch to look at me, though, and think, that guy rides a
You
big
ought to
dog
see
or
his
a Harley.
chocolate.
Oh, I know. I bet you do. It's not to me, but so anyway, but we one of our shirts says we're a bar ministry with a motorcycle habit, because about 50% of us are bikers. So
Yeah.
it's just super cool. It's been a wild ride, bro. Like,
Amen.
I mean, this ministry stuff is like, I'm just going out. Thankfully, God had started it by saying, Save Savage. What is Save Savage? Is that a ministry? Is that a shirt company? That's a really cool shirt. Is that, is it a film company? I don't really want another LLC. I'm just having this conversation with God, and he says, yeah, it's all that, but you're a Save Savage. And
Amen.
to me, it's really just it's picking up where the Cowboy Church or anyone else that's outside the box ministries. It's the same thing. It's just
It's people business.
It's just trying to go into a place that most people don't go into, try to introduce to people to Christ, or to bring them back. 'Cause that's what's been interesting. I thought like I just naturally, it'll be okay. We're gonna go lead a bunch of, shamefully, I thought, I'll lead some drunk people to the Lord. One, that's horribly, it's insulting for me to have said that, or thought that. But really, what's happening? It's Texas. Everybody knows Jesus. Mm-hmm. They just, now, does Jesus know everybody? And then it's just really, basically, we've been herding sheep.
So I don't mean to, is it all right if I interject?
Please.
So my thing about going to the bar is I've never had a problem with going into a bar,
mm-hmm.
even as a pastor.
Right.
They know me right here. Right. I'll come into this bar sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about the bar is people will go in there, and that's where they're finding community.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately, the church has not been where they can open, a place where they can go open up, because people are like looking down.
Yep.
It's like, you go to the bar, man, we're all friends. You have a few drinks, everybody's friends, and people will open up.
Yeah.
And so, now, don't get me wrong, I ain't hanging out in the bar, but they know me.
Well, I do a few hours a week.
but they know me if I go in there.
Right.
They know my heart
Absolutely.
too, and that's the whole thing.
Well, we kind of call Cody Jinks now the patron saint of Save Savage. Not that we're Catholic, it sounds funny, because he's been so instrumental in some of the music, and we play some of his music sometimes. And so anyway, he has a song that he says in one of his verses. I'll try to quote it or not butcher it. He says, "The corner bar is not a place of sin. It's something of sin. It's a place where all of us fit in." And it was like, whoa! I mean, some heavy stuff, because that's the thing. And what's happened is what we found, and I didn't expect to find this, is that that's what happens. People, I should have, because I spent some times in bars, when I still loved the Lord, but I was killing some pain, and that's what we find is we find some people that are out there just looking for something, looking at, and they're not finding it in the brick and mortar church.
Yeah.
Not that all churches are that way, but just that's what we're finding.
Yeah.
We're just we've been able to just kind of herd some of his sheep and bring them back to the Lord. So some of them are back in brick and mortar churches, or we've also now, part of the expansion is we've started a Save Savage Fellowship, which is at a different time in a same location, to where people that won't go back to church, they say, well, I'm just not going to go back to church. Well, then come fellowship with us, and we'll have brunch, and we'll have us a short message, and it's almost like a stair step to a church,
Yeah.
So
That's good.
So, but yeah, it's that's kind of how it's been with us, and or with this thing, and it's pretty exciting. It's
Well, Matt,
exciting.
Your card says you're a Christian conservative, and it mentions Texas politics.
Yes, sir. Christian conservative Texas politics. Been on the air now 3 years out of the Hill Country Patriot out of Kerrville. And this is kind of fun because I'm usually doing the one doing all the talking. And so this is kind of fun to sit here and listen to Pastor Mike, who I've known for many years now. He joined us up at the Capitol, I don't know, about 8 years ago, one of our first trips we went up there. And then he helped get through the Protect Our Pastors bill a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm also the head of the Fredericksburg Tea Party. And we are very active up at the Capitol, and we go up there during legislative sessions and try to promote conservative ideas and fight Republicans. Unfortunately, we have bigger fights with the Republicans than we do the Democrats, and they're the ones that are supposed to be our enemies. But I have to say this: I'm the only one at the table that doesn't ride a bike. And
you don't look.
No, I don't ride one.
You don't ride one?
No, it's a 50-50 split here.
You don't look like you
I don't
ride
look like a
bike.
biker?
You don't look
Okay.
like you don't ride a bike.
Oh, I don't look like I don't.
You look more like you should than
Like
Nick.
I should
Exactly.
be riding a
Come
bike.
on,
Yeah. One of these days, we're waiting on that. But when it comes to Christianity and politics, there are a couple of things that come to mind.
Here's the
Number one-
grenade.
Uh-oh.
He's just dropping it. Boom.
Boom!
When I started the radio program, and I was talking to my friends about it, and I had never done radio before. It wasn't anything I was looking for. It wasn't anything that was on my bucket list, anything. And it just came up, and I was talking to some of my friends and about it, and every one of them, even separately, said, well, if you don't include God or Christ in this,
Right.
you're not going to get very far.
Right.
And so they all advised me. They said, you need to have a scripture in there every day, and maybe put a prayer list in there every day. And so that is, I end my show up with a scripture every day, and we have a prayer list. And it's very interesting when I don't put the scriptures in there, or I talk myself, because it's live radio, and so I'll talk myself right up to the last second,
Right.
and then go, oh man, I didn't get the scripture in there. And then my mom texts me, and then my wife texts me, and it says, where was your scripture today? You better watch yourself.
Hello.
And so, and the other aspect, and this is probably the toughest thing to get across to people, is this idea that the government takes care of so many people. They claim to.
Right.
They claim to take care of. Let's put it that way. We leave our vets up to the care of the governor. We leave our old people up to the care of the government. We leave our orphans up to the care of the government. And if you just go to Scripture, it's very clear, Old Testament all the way through New
Right.
Testament, that it is our job.
Absolutely.
It's our job. And one of the
Absolutely.
things that I've said very often is, wouldn't it be great to wake up some morning and the whole food stamp program just is gone?
Right.
Everybody just has to go home because they're not giving out that food. And it's not because everybody's getting fed, but it's because Christians and churches and individuals stepped up to the plate to do what we're commanded to do. And I guess probably the saddest thing I've ever heard in the last 3 years, we had a preacher in the studio, and we were talking about that, and he said that, well, that's why God had us invent government, to take care of all those
Oh,
people.
hello.
Yeah.
And I
don't know.
it just killed me.
I don't
and
think
so,
our God is the God that invented that program.
Yeah.
No,
You know
I
what
don't
I'm saying?
think
I'm
so.
just saying.
Well,
a little G God that we don't like much.
That's
You know
right.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
And one of the things that we found and the way Headwaters for Heroes got started, and it was, in my opinion, it was divine intervention. Matt was sitting here a while ago, Matt Dethridge, and he stepped out, but I was helping another outfit with wounded warriors, and I didn't like what they were doing because they were doing it for publicity. And I was doing all the cooking, my wife and I were, and there was one event, and I was so fed up with it because they were doing it for their own glory, and I couldn't handle that. And we weren't going to go cook, and something told us, no, we can't just leave them high and dry. Let's go finish out. Let's go do this. And we were there, and it was there we met a young man who had just lost his legs in Afghanistan. His name was Matt Dethridge, and Matt's become part of the family now. But his mother was there. He was recuperating at BAMC, and his mother was there with him, and she had to go back to Ohio, go back to work. And she turned to my wife and she said, who's going to take care of my baby boy? There's Matt. He just walked back in, the man of the hour. She said, who's going to take care of my baby boy? And my wife said, we will. And I remember that day, and it didn't strike me at the moment, but when you look back, as you can do in so many things, your vision becomes very, very clear. It was, we were told to go back, and that's when we saw the need, and there was Matt. Now, I didn't have a freaking clue what to do with it. And I remember that day I was heading out of San Antonio, my wife and I were talking, and my wife said, hey, have you checked in on Matt? I said, no, I hadn't. So I called Matt. How you doing? What's going on? I said, well, whenever you want to come up, just say when. And he said when. So I turned that damn truck around, and here we go. And when we got Matt in the house, and Matt remembers this, I'm sure. I mean, he was in a wheelchair. I had to call friends to come over and help carry him in the house. And I didn't think he was that big. That's a big boy over there.
He's fatter now.
Yeah, he is fatter now. But it was when I saw my dad and him, my dad's Baptist deacon, and when I watched them talk, I started seeing that, wow, this is where God has put us. And it's not the government. This is where I was trying to go.
Yeah.
It's not the government that should be taking care of. If we don't take care of our own, then we're lost.
Right.
And so a lot of what we do is driven on that faith. I get asked from time to time by veterans, it's like, why do you do this?
Right.
It's what I'm called to do.
Yeah, we have to.
I don't get paid for this. I would never want to get paid for this. But I've received more, believe it or not, ministry from the likes of Matt and Steve Land sitting over there, and Steve Land's like, me, minister? but it's I've received as much ministry from them as I've ever given. Right. But going back to the topic of the government, our government, when they're given, they take 10 times more.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right. So let me, I got a question. So, since we're talking religion and politics, why not just pull the pin? And so, which came first? Which came first? Did the church stop taking care of those that needed taken care of, the widows, the that, or did the government say, "Oh, we got this"? I wasn't there.
That's a great
I wasn't
question.
there, but I have a theory that they're that it's been a I kind of lean towards the conspiracy that things don't just happen by accident, and I feel like it just started with somewhere along the line says, you know what, you don't have to rally and form a posse to go after so and so's cow thief. Y'all just take a little tax money and give it to us, and then we'll take that burden for you. And then it's like, you know what? You shouldn't have to take care of your mom. You shouldn't have to save your whole life so that you can take care of your mom or your dad when they're too old. You know what? Just drop a little over here, and then we'll take care of it. Now, maybe it happened innocently or not, but what it has done, in my opinion, either way, whether it was a conspiracy or not, it's killed Christian charity. It is just to where people are like, well, they can go get a government check, or they can go to this. No, that should be, if they have no family and they have no church and they have all of this, that is what we're supposed to do. The church is supposed to take care of that. That's where, and by the way, we're the church, and they're not supposed to go to a brick and mortar. It's neighbor is supposed to take care of neighbor, brother is supposed to take care of brother, family, and that's what we're supposed to do, in my opinion. And I read through the Bible every single year, word for word. Not that I get word for word, because you know how you get lost.
Deuteronomy.
You just pick up little, like
Leviticus.
Leviticus, yeah.
But we're
there you go.
supposed to take care of one another, and now it's just this monstrous government just takes more, like you said, more and more and more. Oh,
Well, they have to justify their existence.
Now of course, politically, we were founded a republic, not a democracy. Sorry for anyone who doesn't understand that. And in all of these rights that the government gives us that's a lie. These are checks against the government. The Second Amendment, the First Amendment, it's not saying that we have the right. It's like you don't have the right to infringe.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was written by us to them, not to them for us. It's not a gift that we're given, and it's just, it blows me away that how we got here. I don't know.
Well, I have an opinion about this. Being in ministry, I think that the church has abdicated its position to the government,
Right.
which is basically what you're saying.
Right.
But the other thing is the church has seemed to become more interested in buildings,
Sure.
edifices,
Right.
and it's become a business
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
rather than real ministry.
Right.
And I'm not saying we do it all right, but we have a certain amount that our church, every week, we give out.
Right.
And this community, people, whatever, I'm not saying we're perfect,
Sure.
but we don't have a load of debt. And unfortunately, if you were to go down in some of these big cities, 75%, I would be willing to
Right.
bet, of those big churches are in debt to pay for a building,
Sure.
Yeah.
a place to meet,
Which means they're in slavery,
which means they're in slavery. Exactly.
because they have to do this.
Our church,
Yeah.
we don't even pass an offering plate.
Right.
We've never passed an offering plate one
Wow.
time. And there's always money there.
Wow.
We went through a period where we went through a little financial struggle, and I'm looking at it, like, what are we doing wrong? And God spoke to my heart. I want you to give 10% of everything, at least 10% of everything that comes into this church, to somebody else. From the week we started that, we never had another,
Wow.
and everything we have is paid for. And we're out here in Harper, Texas, in the middle
Right.
of nowhere.
Right.
And we've got, and God's blessed us supernaturally, and we're able to give. But what I've seen is, I know, and my pastor friends that may see this, but I've talked to them about, like, if you're passing an offering plate, in 2 Corinthians, it talks about don't give under duress or
Right.
under compulsion.
Right.
What do we do every time we pass an offering plate down the aisle? We are compelling people to put money in.
Oh, wow.
We're doing exactly the opposite of for the Lord loves a cheerful giver.
Right.
If somebody's giving cheerfully, they know it's going to the right place. They know it's going to a good thing. Man, they'll give more. It's just like if you go to a barbecue and they're saying it's $10 a plate. You got to pay $10 a plate. You're going to get a lot less than if you say by donation.
Yeah.
Proven fact. It's the same thing in the church. And the thing is, and then that has to be accounted and go to the right place.
Right.
Go to people like we're talking about, and go into things that are people that are in need. But what's happened is the church has become a slave to the system.
Right.
even the church is a slave. I know of churches, I've heard of churches that pass an offering plate 2 or 3 times to pay their mortgage.
Right.
It's like, why? What do you? Either we believe what we talk about and the way we live. Either we believe it,
Right.
or it's like, what's the point of showing up, man? I might as well go to the bar and have a drink.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Can we go to the way, if you take a look starting in Genesis, the way God set up our responsibilities, you start with Adam and Eve, and there's your basic fundamental unit, and then they have children, and then so you've got your family. That's the first unit is your family, and that's the one you need to take care of first. If your kids are hungry, you need to feed your kids before you start going off trying to take care of other people. Make sure your kids. And make sure your own mental and spiritual health is good before you go trying to go help everyone. So it all starts at the center. And then when you get into the Israelites, they were in families, but then they were also in tribes. And so they had this family unit, the bigger family, the tribes, and then a whole of Israel. And they took care of each other at each one of those levels. And then when you get to the New Testament, Christianity, you had the very early Christians that all came together and shared everything. Right. And I've had people say, well, there it is. That's a socialism right there, and it was in the Bible. And it's like, no, that was not socialism. That was people who loved each other and took care of each other and were watching out for
They weren't
each other.
forced to do that at an AK-47.
That's right. That's right.
You know what's funny is like I didn't know it could get more. It's like I knew we were going controversial. Now we're talking about tithes. Isn't that the most controversial thing in the church?
Well, but I had a discussion, and I'm going to call out Steve Lane because he's sitting over there. He and I had this very conversation the other day, didn't we? About tithing.
Yep.
And I think there's a misconception that, well, and there's going to be a lot of pastors that argue with me on this. And my dad and I have had this conversation, and he respects where I stand with this. It's not about, tithing to me is not necessarily about money, but it's giving.
Right.
It's giving of yourself. And if you give of yourself, to me, that's the same. What verse is it, Pastor Mike, in the Bible, where
About tithing?
Well, it's about the poor that gave 1 penny, and
Oh,
it
the
was
widow mite.
Oh, yeah.
There we
Widow's
go.
mite,
Right,
yeah.
Yeah. So it's not about how much you give. It's what you do give.
Right.
Now,
Well, that you give from here. You give from your heart.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. And so I believe if I take my time, my talent, and do what I do with Headwaters for Heroes, we offer the veterans the ability to be with others and try to find some calmness, some happiness, some peace. That, while it's not me laying a check for $1,000 on the table,
Sure.
that's tithing. Your time is worth something,
absolutely.
and that is tithing.
Well, it's a fact. Monetarily, it is worth something.
And so,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that argue, well, no, it's, and I've had conversations with pastors, it's, well, no, we need the money so we can continue
But
spreading
you know
the word.
what's interesting on that? That man, I can't believe I didn't bring a Bible to this one. But I tell you the truth, I got caught. I was down outside talking. And you're like, hey, come on. But so I believe in Deuteronomy, and I've got it marked, and I'll send it to y'all because it's very interesting. Right there where they always preach about the tithing, and all this, but it says like if you can't take so you're supposed to take your sheep and all this stuff, and you're supposed to travel to there, and if you can't, then you're supposed to butcher that and celebrate with your family, and it's there. Like
Wow.
it's right, and it's in the same chapter that, and then it says, hey, but then give the priest their share and all this. But it's like it's basically you're supposed to set aside this tithe and you're supposed to make this journey. But if you're not able to make the journey, then you're supposed to butcher that and do that with you. So it's literally saying you're supposed to spend it on your family. You're not supposed to just do willy-nilly. You're supposed to spend it on your family if you can't go and take it to basically give to the church or the temple, and I just ran across this, I don't know, a month ago, and I was like, what? And we've had much conversations like, Yeah, so that's kind of how I feel about, you know, and it's very controversial, but it's just not that simple and cut and dry. And but to tell you the truth, neither's your faith, neither's Christianity, neither,
Yeah.
you know, it's not that simple and cut and dry.
We go back to when we were talking about which came first. Was it did religion give up control? Did the government just take control? I'm one of those that believes that. I think there's those people that they want the control. It's about their self-importance, and I think the government continues to grow that way. And anything the government does sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, look at the VA.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the horror stories that I hear from our guys that come out, what they put up with the VA.
Yeah.
It's not right.
I mean, but anything you look at in government that they try to take control for the betterment of the citizens.
They pay $500 for a hammer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
For the
we-
betterment of, oh, hey, we'll
and
take care of you guys.
Your services suck.
$1,000
Everything
for a toilet.
is
Yeah.
everything is terrible.
Yeah.
So with what we do, it's and I remember early on the first group that I was working with, they encouraged me, work with the Wounded Warrior Battalion at Fort Sam. And I went and had a talk with them. They had more regulations for me to have the right to take these guys out to do something. And it was like, wait a second. What the hell do you mean I have to have your permission? I have to sign that I'm going to follow your rules. And it really just blew my mind.
Yeah.
You know, we've been struggling with going to the Capitol when the Texas legislature meets, and we have a lot of members of our group and a lot of friends I know that are not physically able to go up to the Capitol. They're either older or they have some handicap or something. And so we're always talking about go to the Capitol. And then those who can't go, it's like, well, what can I do? And so we've been working on that. And it just occurred to me, Headwaters for Heroes, if you can't give the money and you can't, come to the fundraiser or what have you, the big party tomorrow, is there some vet out there that just needs a fake grandma that calls once a week, or an aunt, the old aunt that needs is there something that some little old lady could do to make a call or make some cookies and send them out? I mean, it seems like there should be some things for those who can't write a check.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up that whole concept, because one of the things that we talk about when we talk about veteran suicide is always answer your phone when they call. Now, that's whether they're calling their battle buddies or whether they're calling me. Always answer your phone. And I do my best to answer my phone. But, they need to hear from people. A lot of times they become shut-ins.
Yeah.
And we talked about this earlier in a different segment. Our government does probably the best job in the world of training our guys and gals to be the best fighting machine in the world.
And be independent.
And yes, and if the government would ever let them fight like they're trained to fight, we wouldn't be in Afghanistan for 20 years. We wouldn't be all over the world doing this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But but my point is, when they transition them out, they do a shitty job. They just turn them loose. Thanks. See ya. Have a great life. And a lot of these guys, they struggle with that. So a simple phone call does make a difference.
Give them a project. That's another one I've heard people coming back from the service, and they're project oriented. And if there's something they can work on, and maybe it's your backyard, maybe it's your lawn tractor, maybe it's I don't know. Is there a project or something?
It's interesting.
It's interesting because we have a number of our veterans that do try to give back, and a lot of it is kind of project oriented. Whether it's building a gun for us to auction off, whether it's a painting to auction off, they've got a lot of talent.
Absolutely.
And the government,
most talented.
the government is not taking care of them, And I heard someone say the other day, since I was on the topic of war, it's and I don't want to get into a class argument here over rich versus poor, but the rich are the ones that decide to go to war.
Right.
And the rich are the ones that decide to end the wars. Nobody ever asked these young guys that are fighting. They go and fight. And I would like, just for one time, you're going to get us into a war? Let them fight their way. But before you pull the plug, ask if they want to finish this fight. We send these boys to die without any. I don't know what to say. When does it stop? When do we push our government back? Don't get me wrong. And there's a need in this world to fight evil. Mm-hmm. And you look at what's going on in the world with what's going on with Putin right now. I mean, the man's evil. I mean, there's nothing about what he's doing is
Righteous.
I mean, he is flat evil, and we should fight that. And it's amazing how some wars we're eager to jump in, and other wars we're not. And when you dig deeper, and there's a lot of we're not.
There's
fighting.
a whole lot more to that.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a whole lot to that.
More than we have
That's
time to discuss, but
exactly, yeah.
But I think that anything anybody can do, and I don't know, we do all we can.
Right.
And, we have this big fundraiser, and we raise quite a bit of money, and by this time next year, it's all gone.
Yeah.
But it's not because, it's because we're doing what we're called to do,
Right.
and taking care of our brethren.
Right.
And they really, really need it.
War's hell, and it's a place where, I've got friends that, some that have been over there, and, a friend of mine said the other day, he was talking about somebody, he says, I've killed people I like more than you. Not to me, but to this other person. And I was like, because they've gone over and killed sometimes pretty decent people, that could have been friends in another situation. You know what I mean? And we send people over here to do that horrible work. Yeah, and then we just bring them back whenever, like without concern, like you say, what they want or what they feel like. I mean, leaving them completely empty, like we didn't get to finish, and then we just turn them loose, and we expect that everything. I mean, there's no, in no one's right mind could anyone think that that's gonna be that's a good process. No one. I can't. I just don't even. No one can look at that for even just. You can study it just for a short while, and then especially if you know someone that's been in that situation. There's no one that can come to the conclusion. Oh yeah, that's just the way we. That's a good thing to do. Is just send these people over here to do this horrible stuff, and just come back and just, all right, well, you're free to go back home. No, it's horrible. I mean, we've got to take care of that, and in this conversation, that really, that's what's incredible, because we talked about the government failing at it, but the people aren't. Organizations like Headwaters for Heroes have to step in there, and we have to fix those problems. I know, I know some people, some veterans that are, my brain, Tally is his last name, in Conroe, kind of a buddy of mine, even though I can't remember his first name right now.
Yeah.
I've been hitting the head too many times, but he pushed to get the tally bill passed and all this kind of stuff, because it's that type of stuff. You go over there, and then you come back, you're banged up, beat up, destroyed, and then they just turn you out. They just like, oh well, we've got nothing to do for you. They sent you through this VA that sucks, and all this kind of stuff. So they're out there trying to make a difference so that other people don't have to deal with what they've had to deal with. And then you got people like y'all that are out there and are like us in the sense of, I do want to include myself a little bit, just because we love Headwaters Heroes so much, and we don't do enough, but we want to do more and more and more, because which came first, the chicken or the egg, we don't know. Did they intentionally do it? or did it accidentally happen, or was it the complacency and of man saying, well, at least I don't have to do it, I'll let somebody else do it? Whether laziness did it, complacency, or malice, it doesn't matter. It sucks, and we got to fix it.
Yeah.
We've got to fix it.
You know, when you were talking, the generation, the Vietnam guys, the guys that came back from Nam, my heart goes out to them, because when they came back, they weren't cuddled, they weren't coddled, they were nothing. It was the exact opposite.
They were
Anybody that's
Spies
watching
spit
that,
on.
anybody that's watching, if you were in Vietnam, my heart goes out to you, because you did your country's duty
Right.
and came back, and the people stepped on you.
Yeah.
And that we can never, ever allow another generation to come back like the Vietnam vets
Right.
did.
Do you
mean,
think it's getting better? Like, I mean, it was so horrible, with Vietnam, and then with those veterans, do you think it's,
What time is it?
you think there's hope? Like, I mean, well, of course there's hope, but I mean, are we, what is your fingers on that pulse? Is it getting a little better?
I think society treats them better.
Okay.
My dad was in Korea and Vietnam, and I believe our society treats them better now, but I think a lot of it has to do with, there for a while the media was really, really putting a good face out
Sure.
there that, wow, our people, it's a volunteer army, which I think is phenomenal.
Yeah.
That we can have what we have, and it's a volunteer army.
Sure.
That speaks a lot for our country, but they are treated better, but I see that changing, because once the media quit putting it out there, a lot of people just thought
They're all good.
they're all good.
They're
Right.
taken care of. Yeah,
And they're not all good.
that's right.
And that's, and the media, we all know they
Yeah, that's a whole can of worms.
that's something I don't even want to get after.
Do we have another hour?
Yeah, do we have another 10 hours? But yeah.
But I see the people want to. They don't know how to.
Right.
They want to. They want to say thank you.
Right.
It's a different world from Vietnam. I think the Vietnam veterans that you talk about, they paved the way for the better benefits that our guys are getting now.
That's true.
They fought for the better benefits
Right.
for these guys.
Yeah.
But
By
it
the
wasn't
way,
it-
y'all know, I heard this the other day and I hadn't thought of it. Do you know do a little bit of math here. How old are the people that came back from Vietnam about right now? Let's say 52. They are getting into their 70s, probably many of them in their 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the World War II veterans die out. There's very few of them around, but there's still a couple of them around.
Yeah.
And now I think we're watching that. And are we going to take care of these Vietnam vets in their 80s and as they move on? And then what about Afghanistan and Kuwait and all of that and those guys? Everything moving forward from there. It's a big job, and we all have to do personally our job. This is not something we push off on the government. We need to do our jobs, and thus Headwaters for Heroes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's I'm thankful that you guys are out there doing that, and that we can be a part of it. I'm thankful to help televise it, and I'm not saying this to say, oh, hey, we do this, but it's literally, I'm thankful to be a piece of it, a part of it, and I it's my mission to go do more. It's like I told somebody, it's like with Americanic, where it's like, hey, I'm too old and fat to go start a revolution. You know what I mean? My knees are broke down, and but what I can do is I can go create content.
Yeah.
I can try to get content out there and try to change the minds of people and take it back the way that they've been taken. And that's, by you doing that, putting that out there, by doing this podcast and other podcasts, by going out, this is a grassroots way to change to
Absolutely.
change America.
Yeah.
You know, and to change American policy, and that's what we've got to do. Is we've got to just keep talking about it and doing, because talk's cheap.
Well, I agree with that, and we'll take that on a closing note because we've taken up a lot of camera time, but we do. It's up to us to make the changes. It's up to us to make a difference in this world, and you know, I never dreamed that in my life, in all that I've done, most of which was pretty shameful, that I would.
Why'd you look at me when you said that?
Because you're the pastor.
He
We're all
turns
like,
over here and looks at me like,
we're like,
is
we
this
don't
a
really want to.
confession or you're trying to include me in it?
Well, you kind of know some of the things I probably have done in my life, but you know, it is up to us. And there's other organizations besides Headwaters for Heroes, but many left, quit because they were doing it for the wrong reasons. As a lot of these guys have talked about, they became a dog and pony show, and that's what we don't do. But like I said, this is a conversation that I think we can spend another hour talking about the politics and the religion of this country. One thing is for certain, our country, I truly believe, is trying to find its way back on the right path. I truly believe.
I believe it.
I think they've taken us so far left that people are throwing up right now and saying, wow, this is not what I envisioned this happening in my lifetime.
Right.
And so I truly believe we're taking the country back. And with that, I'm going to say thank you guys for being here.
So that's not a ending. This is just pausing, right?
This is part one.
Part one of a series.
Part one, and we'll get together and do this again.
We'll have to do this again.
And like I said, I'm going to thank Matt. We've done some radio time together. Always enjoy that. Look forward to doing it again. Randall, thank you for your support and being here. Mike, it's been a great pleasure. We need to do this again.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we should. Be
Let's
good.
go talk about the stuff you're not supposed to talk about at a party.
All right,
keep doing it.
folks.
We'll just keep doing it.
Headwaters for Heroes. Check us out on www.com, www.headwatersforheroes.com. Check us out on Facebook. Go find Headwaters for Heroes Outdoors on Pursuit Channel and Americanic TV. Thanks for watching.